Uh, so last night was the NBA draft, and I might say it was a peculiar looking group to me. Last night, if you was following me on Facebook, I had my comments to say about how weird these guys look. They don't look believable like the NBA drafts in my past. But you know what? Maybe I'm just being generationally biased, maybe. But last night they had a prospect who had his fingernails painted black. And this particular young man had been painting his fingernails throughout the course of his college career, maybe beyond. And as we see in the last couple of years in the NBA, fingernail painting by males have become a commonality. And so when we look at today's generation, especially us as older black men, we look at some of the trends that these young men are walking around in, and we're kind of critical. And that's to be understood because everything is generational, right? Just like if you hoop, we all see what they call them, the hoochie daddy shorts, where now they have the shorts raised back up to their thighs with maybe a spandex or a tight coming down to their knees. And however, when you just observe the black male of today, we see that they're walking around with a man purse, but it's still a purse. We see that they walk around sagging with their pants below their ass crease. We see that they're wearing skinny jeans. We see that they have real long hair. We see that they like to be more prettier than a woman. And we do understand that gay black men are prevalent. They are very relevant. They are everywhere, right? But this episode is not about homophobia. This episode is about heterophobia and the fear of straight black men and what it's become to. So when we look at today, some of the older black men, myself, we may be critical of a lot of things. And like me and my partner say, black men today and men in general, they left nothing for a woman. They've left no distinguished difference between a man and a woman nowadays. Even when it comes to a lot of transgender situations, you can't even tell if it's a man or a woman, especially here in Atlanta, Georgia. And I did notice a weird trend of black women who really love going to drag shows, which I clearly don't understand. But when you think about the trends that we see today that could be perceived as homosexuality, feminine, beta, whatever you want to call it, it didn't just start in 2024. When we really examine and look back, especially when I was a teenager, one of the greatest hip hop songs of all time came by the Sugar Hill Gang, Grandmaster Flash, Furious 5. When you observe a lot of those older rap groups at the beginning and the origin of the dawning of hip hop, they were wearing spikes. They were wearing chains and leather suits, tight as hell. Stuff that you wouldn't even catch a rapper wearing nowadays. And the tight pants wearing is nothing new because black men wore tight pants. And if you really want to keep it a buck, now everybody's talking about the bell bottoms coming back. Now my father owned a shitload of bell bottoms. But did we realize that back in the day, the black men were wearing high platform shoes? No different than a stiletto. No different than what women would wear. And they wore tight pants and tight shirts unbuttoned with their chest out. But back in the 70s, that was seen as something to be so sexy and so rare, right? And every black man that I knew back in the day growing up, they all wanted to be like the Mac, Superfly, Shaft. Do you understand what I'm saying? Richard Roundtree, Cotton Comes to Harlem. And if you really examine a lot of the old black exploitation films, you're going to find spots of homosexuality in there. I can't remember this old 70s movie, but there was a guy going around killing women who was a homosexual. And I happened to watch this movie and I was shocked. I'm like, man, so much we missed as kids growing up, but we didn't understand it till we became adults. So what we see today is nothing new. There's an old saying, there's nothing new under the sun. So when we fast forward and we look at today's society, because the first homosexual person that I've ever known in my life was a person who whooped my ass, Brent. Brent was a character, was a young man that grew up in my neighborhood back in St. Louis, Missouri. And we all knew that Brent was different. We all knew that Brent was sassy and, he was a gay kid. He never hid it. But Brent could fight his ass off, and I just could not whoop Brent's ass. My cousin even made me go out there and fight him one day. He was more like a bully. But I didn't understand his mannerisms at the time. I'm like, why is this dude who I cannot whoop? He fights so good, but he seems so girly. But as time went on, we began to accept him. He was just a part of the neighborhood. Nobody bothered Brent. We understood that he was different. And we talking about a time that if a black man or anybody came out as gay, whether it was male or female, they caught so much ridicule, they caught a lot of hell, they caught a lot of criticism. So it was very courageous to come out as a gay person in the early 80s, and even maybe the 70s. And I can also remember back in high school, Darren Player was the first openly gay dude that I ever known. He was quiet, he stood to himself, never really bothered nobody. But as I got older and I reflected back and I look at his life, because he's no longer with us as well, neither is brother Brent. I could just imagine how lonely he was, how, he just wanted to be himself and nobody would accept it. And still to this day, we have a lot of people that don't accept homosexuality. Now, I have a lot of friends and family members who are gay. I don't have no problem with homosexuality. I don't have a problem with women who are lesbians, not at all. I have loved ones who are gay. I have family members, females who are gay, right? But that's not the situation. Now, a lot of times I fell to the peer pressure of mocking and talking about people, but it was never hate from my heart. But now as we fast forward, we go into the new future. We look now, we see that tight shorts are back. This is nothing new. And remember when Cameron and the Dipset made wearing pink cool? Because back in the 80s, if a man had on pink, he was gay. But then they brought it back with the pink furry coats and the big ass diamonds. They made it cool to wear pink and rock any color. And besides, can you really liken a color to homosexuality or a sexual orientation? And I can recall back in the day, there was a young lady who I used to know. They used to come up to my job. Her name was Sansa Ray. She was charcoal black and beautiful. And at that time, we used to have very deep conversations up at the gas station. And she told me one thing. She said, Red, she said, these street niggas are gay. These drug dealers are gay. I was like, that's complete bullshit. Because coming up from St. Louis, most of the guys that I knew that was some of the, the hardest hitting gangsters in the street, some of the big time dope dealers, I respected these guys. They appeared masculine to me. But what I failed to realize, being masculine has nothing to do with sexual orientation. And so she was the first person that told me that the down low man existed, and I did not believe her, right? And everybody heard about the down low man back in the 90s, but nobody believed it until black women started coming up with alarming rates of HIV. And where was they getting it from? Because can a woman give it to a woman in a lesbian relationship? I highly doubt it. It takes some type of sexual penetration for that disease to be transmitted, or the passing of blood or sharing the drug needles as we understood it in the 90s. But then when my own beloved family member had become stricken with the situation, questions began to arise, and we looked in one direction. And so we began to realize, and even in 2024, that the down low man is no longer a mystery. However, this is where I'm going with this. George Weinberg, he was a Jewish American scientist, and he coined the phrase homophobia. I believe it was back in 1967, around that time, or 69. Now, let me say this. He said he noticed the fear of gays between men and women in society, and I can understand that, and I can rock with that. But Neely Fuller said in 1967 that black men will be wearing dresses. So anytime I break down any situation that's going on in the society with us as a people, I have to always take it back to the code, the United Independent Compensatory Code, written by Neely Fuller, Neely Fuller Jr., whom the late brilliant Dr. Frances Cress Welsing coined him as one of the greatest minds ever. She said he was a genius. And when I used to read her book, I used to always talk about who is this guy that she's always referring to, because I thought the ISIS papers was the end all be all. And then when I read the book and understood the code, he always talked about 9 areas of people activity which black people will be mistreated and dominated. And it is economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. But Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. would always talk about the most powerful area that white supremacists target was sex, and how powerful sex is. And he told us that if you can control them and confuse them with sex, you can control them forever. And that's exactly how he said it. So what I began to notice is the transitioning of society, because the same person, Sansa Ray, told me that there's a gay mafia. And I'm like, that's cap. And I didn't believe her. But over time went on, and society began to accept the LGBT community. They garnered more power. A lot of people say Obama just came in office to make gay a legality. Well, actually, Obama says it wasn't really about that. Obama said the LGBT community came with a check. And a lot of people need to thank the LGBT community, because if you have a domestic partner that you are not legally binded to in a marriage, you still can get benefits off your job from your partner thanks to the LGBT community. But black folks came with complaints. So who's to be upset and mad about the LGBT community organizing for what they wanted to do and get the rights that they want to marry one another? And so as I look about society, when she talked about the gay mafia, when's the last time somebody used the F-bomb on social media that wasn't had their account blocked, banned, suspended? When's the last time somebody of prominence, whether it's an athlete, a superstar, an entertainer, that when they used the F-bomb or they said something against the LGBT community, they got shut down? This is when I began to realize that the LGBT community was real and that there was a gay mafia. So when you examine society as a heterosexual black man, you will begin to see that now you are the target. You are the one that's ridiculed. You are the one that's ostracized. We're not going to sit up here and act like black women do not embrace the gay man more than they do the heterosexual man. We're not going to sit up here and act like our community did not sign on to a movement that has destroyed the identity of many black men whose reality is much more different than that of being homosexual. And so in understanding these things, we've been disciplined to a level to have to respect this community. And that's fine. And that's no problem. Very few times can I go to any movie on any streaming app to where they have a movie about a black man who is heterosexual or who is not silly or who is not stupid. Very few. I was watching this new movie on Netflix. All right. Found it to be very interesting. I'm watching the movie and I'm digging it. Yo, it's cool. And then there was a scene where he came in to take care of an elderly white man. I'm just thinking maybe this is a good friend. Then he leaned over, kissed the man, and got in bed with him. Or when they wanted to bring up about a social civil rights fighter who was homosexual. This is like a purposed agenda. Or when you look at any TV commercial and you hardly ever see a heterosexual black man. Or you hardly see a black man with a black woman. And they've made the white male the new male. They made the white male the sexy, the in shape, the kick-ass, the intelligent. When I grew up, all I knew was that to be with black men who were in shape, who had sex appeal, who loved the ladies and the ladies loved him, was kick-ass, intelligent, smart, superhuman, driving down the avenue in a clean-ass Cadillac with a pristine fro, not perm, but a pristine fro that used to blow in the wind. But these things no longer exist. We missed the social engineering to now where there used to be a big thing with homophobia, but now we have heterophobia, the fear of straight black men. Whenever a black man who is straight walks into a facility, a store, no matter where he's at, he's always tracked, watched, and monitored because he's obviously a straight male. I recently made a move, and y'all have to excuse me because the studio is nothing like what it used to be. But on my move, I went to 5 different properties, and I know I was profiled because I was an obvious heterosexual male, or I may have came off too masculine to people. But I know that I've been profiled because of such. Anytime I have to deal with business, whether it's a governmental matter, whether it's health, medical, something critical in every area where there is power and positioning, there are homosexuals. The LGBT community is there. They have the power. They shine and frown upon straight black men. Even when you don't have a problem and you're highly respectful, you are still now a target. So heterophobia is a word that we really need to bludgeon and begin to speak because this is a real reality. What is the fear of why movie producers don't want to put a masculine, handsome, sexy black man besides Denzel Washington movies? What is the fear about that? What is the fear when schools will not pull triggers on heterosexual men to coach and lead children and be the influence on what a man looks like? Now, I'm not saying all coaches are LGBT community, but many are not. Very few alpha males do I see coaching basketball nowadays. Shout out to my brother Spoon. You know, he's one of the few brothers I respect, and a lot of, Larry Thompson over at Wheeler. These are guys I highly respect. My good brother Eric. I think he was affiliated with Tucker. I don't know where he's at now, but he has a high school league. Shout out to you brothers who are standing strong in your masculinity and being a good influence over these kids and leading them. Because I know you all teach the game more than just basketball. I know it's bigger than the game. Coach Michael Richardson, the last time I understood, he was out of Douglas County, who had a great influence over my son, who actually, that if he didn't say 2 words to me when I first moved my son to Georgia, he wouldn't have had the success that he had. And that's just the power of a man. But again, let me also say this. When we look at the LGBT community, there is nothing to really hate. There's no reason to hate somebody because of their sexual orientation. I absolutely do not have a problem with gay people. And I'm going to tell you something. A lot of gay people that I know, both male and female, they take care of business more so than heterosexual people do. Like, they get it done. You understand what I'm saying? Like, my realtor is dope as hell. He's a gay man. Ain't got no problem with that. But that man can put me in the house of my choice based on the things that we work out. And he means well and always stays on business. business. Most of the times, you know what I'm saying, a lot of guys that I know, just in my circle, just men, period, they like to bullshit and fluff off and don't really take care of business. So there's a lot of things that I want people to understand, that this is not a bludgeoning to attack gay people, gay men, or gay women. But this is simply asking, where is the balance of heterosexual men? There is an obvious fear of straight black men. Just like Public Enemy said, there's a fear of a black planet. And if you understand about the system of white supremacy, what it is and how it works, you will understand why this must be a commonality and a norm in our community with our men. And I feel like a dinosaur. A lot of times when I'm out and about and I see a nice young lady, or I'm around a group of young black women, they frown upon me. But I guarantee you, sometimes I think if I walk with a switch and had on some pink and brown Pumas busting splits in the middle of the sidewalk, I'd probably have numbers and women everywhere. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I do sometimes question, what is it about the gay man that most black women choose to love, to respect, to care about, to value, as opposed to the straight heterosexual man? Now, a lot of black women say they don't feel protected. And a lot of times when we look in the news and we look and see unfortunate events where a woman has been killed and the whole family was killed and the children, house being set on fire, this is happening by heterosexual men. A good close friend of mine says she felt more safe in the presence of a gay man than straight men, because straight men, they're disrespectful. If they don't give us their number, we call them bitches, or we want to beat up on them. And no woman should ever feel unsafe just because she don't want to give a man her number. No woman should ever feel unsafe just because she don't want to give him some sex. And so while at the same time it sounded like the craziest, most warped thing to me, I did understand where she was coming from to a fault. However, just like gays have a place in society and we've made a place for them in society, we could do the same thing for the heterosexual black male. But like Dr. Umar Johnson said almost 10 years ago, there's an extermination campaign to eliminate the idea, the presence, and image, and the actual reality of heterosexual black men. And I feel it every day. I see it every day. I feel the heat and hate every single day. And like a good buddy of mine, and I say this in a lot of episodes, nobody goes through the thing a black man goes through. Nobody goes through the things that a black man goes through. We walk around holding it in together. A lot of us are dealing with family issues. A lot of us are dealing with older children who don't even respect us and value us like the mother, like they do their mother. And that's cool, and that's fine, and that's understood. A lot of us are dealing with a lot of pain on the inside. A lot of us are dealing with health issues. A lot of us are having issues based on stress, trying to maintain and pay bills, trying to keep our woman happy, trying to keep our children happy, trying to keep our boss and co-workers happy, right? Because when it comes to the black man, that's a serious reality. And a lot of times I tell people, you wouldn't last a week in a lot of our shoes. Just live 1 week as a black man and you will see the difference in treatment, the difference in how you looked in, the difference in how you're always monitored and tracked, and your intelligence is always insulted. So what we need is a healthy balance of heterosexual black men on the forefront in movies. And brothers, we must get back to being men. You know, when I'm around a lot of amigos, I'm in a different community now where I'm around more of the brown community. And when I look around, man, these young boys, they know how to do shit, fix trucks, houses, all kind of repairs. But what does a lot of our young black men know how to do besides hoop, besides fight, besides, go and kick it all the time and always at the club? What exactly do our young men know how to do? And then we get upset when our women don't respect us, but because we're not solving problems. We're not bringing nothing to the table, but just trying to bang. And as a woman gets older and matures, that's just not good enough. So we must get back to being men for our women to love and respect us. And there are plenty of black women who still love, respect, and value the presence of a black man. So the heterosexual black man deserves his place as well. And we deserve our respect. We deserve our love. We deserve to be valued. And we also deserve to be protected. But our protection is something totally different. See, when black women talk about protection, they talking about physical hurt, harm, and danger. And a lot of times it's unfortunate that what happens to a lot of black women, but these are the men that y'all choosing. Straight fuck boys. But black men, the protection that we looking from y'all is just simply from the system. If we have a child and don't make it, there's no need to go get child support just because it exists. Oh, I'm going to get child support like that's the norm. If you're an adult and an independent woman, then continue to be that. So at the end of the day, everybody can coexist. Secondly, leading from that, the obsession with ass in the black community. We've always been upset every time white people say that the black community is sexually hyper or hypersexualized community, right? And all communities are. Now, we know when there's any time there are negative connotation, we know that the black community wears it the most. But when I really look at us as a community, like according to the code, there's 4 different expressions, motivating expressions in the universe and in the world and on the planet that Neely Fuller Jr. talks about. And those are white supremacy, the response to white supremacy, sexual expression, and the response to sexual expression. Now, I won't even hold you. You know, sex is good, sex is powerful, and I'm a Scorpio. So, the people like, why you always say that? Go read about Scorpios. We some hoes. And let me not say that, because every time I tell a woman I'm a Scorpio, I'm a hoe. No, I'll be your hoe. No, but anyway, even when I was a young boy, the only thing I cared about was sex, squeezing the girl's ass in high school, take off running, and even the mothers of my children, it was always a sexual expression above all. I didn't really look at them for intelligence or a brain. Like, they were beautiful. Like, I almost started to put a stat out the other day that if I had a nickel, if I just had just nickels for how many women that wanted to fight me over the mothers of my children, I'd be a rich man. But it was sexual. I didn't really care about nothing. I just wanted the booty. I wanted the ass. I wanted the screw. I wanted the flap. I wanted the bone. For all you youngsters, we used to say bone. And then my everyday motivation when I woke up was, going to the mall, throwing on my dude to find me another girl that I could hit, right? But when I look at our community and everything that we bask in, everything that we glory, it is the ass. When you go to social media, you will find the most likes for women simply because they are ass and nothing else. Walking around in videos talking about how pretty I am and the man in my DMs and having somebody hold a camera while they just switched and walked the ass half-ass naked, and we think that's valuable. To the point there where a lot of black women alter their look because attraction is sexual. BBLs, women who want to go get BBLs. Why do our women feel like they need to go get BBLs? Because it's sexual. They want to be found attractive. And who's made that a priority? Black men. We've always made that a priority to go after the thickest woman with the biggest ass and got a nice breast and all these things, but it's all motivated for sex. And when I watch movies, when I go to social media, everyday conversations, sex. You go to any dating site, the first thing a woman wants to say is, if it's about sex, don't hit me up, which I think is corny. But we are a sexually driven people, and everyone wants to admit that. We are a bunch of look-at-me's. And why do people want to be looked at? Because they are powerless people. Powerless people make the most noise in the room. Powerless people dress the loudest, laugh the loudest, talk loudest. So at the end of the day, we're repeating nothing but slave plantation behavior. The only worth in the early Americas that black people had was what they could bring to the table genetically. The labor that they could bring to America in the cotton fields and in the house. The physical attributes, mating the buck nigger with the female nigger to see if we can get another nigger to go out there and do our work and labor. And what they would do, they would put them on an auction block. They would turn them around. Look at the shoulders on that male nigger. Look how big his penis is on that male nigger. Look at his legs. Look at the muscles on that male nigger. Now we're going to take him with this nigger and put him with the female nigger. Look at the booty on that nigger. Look at the ass and the roll of iron on that nigger. Look at the titties on that nigger. We're going to make them together, and they both going to get together and make babies to produce for the system. I believe Rob loves Sammys and Bucks making babies for the system. And what do we do nowadays? We go in and hit the gym. Very few brothers are in the gym for actual fitness and health and to be strong. A lot of times we hit in the gym because we want to garner muscles to draw women. That is a proactive act of sex. Same thing with women. They go in the gym. They want to get their ass bigger. They want to get their breasts bigger. They want to get healthy. They want to get tummy tucks. They want to get BBLs. Why? Because it's a proactive act of sex. Sex. And we think that brings value. Being sexy is a big priority in the black community. Very few businesses when it comes to women that I can deal with to where they don't sexualize the business. The lady from a couple years ago, she did my taxes and she was okay. But then, when you go to social media, the algorithm will have you sync in, especially if you got your contacts, it syncs. I came across a profile and I'm like, what? Twerking and half-ass naked while you trying to talk about taxes? I don't need that. One time, a couple years ago when I first started podcasting, I had a clinical therapist on my show. And she was just like, I'm caring about my kings and black people need to do better. And that's fine. But then I go to her page and she's twerking in public, ratchet as hell. I'm like, man, that makes sense. Now, I'm not knocking anybody that want to have a good time. And you know, if you ask most people outside the black community, if you would describe black women in one word, they would say ass. They like to show they ass. In public at Walmart's fighting each other, showing their ass. Same thing with black men. So we have the greatest obsession of the ass. We admonish the ass. We worship the ass. We like to squeeze the ass. I know I did. At what point do we as a people become bigger than genetic boasters? And that's what I call it. It's genetically boasting. Because we know black is beautiful. We know we're built differently. We sound differently. We look differently. Because that's the way that the creator made us. And the one thing that I understood about the ISIS papers, which is a part of monkey see, monkey do. And if I understood this years, I would not have one tattoo on my body, because the creator said, I made you black. You have the most beautiful skin in the universe. You have melanin, which is a neurological chemical that responds to the messages of the universe. You and the universe are one. You're just the microcosm to the macro. But I got tattoos all on my arms. I got them on my chest. I got them on my legs. And for what? Because I didn't think that my brown skin was beautiful enough. Not understanding that the other community calls it body art, because it was understood in the ISIS papers, which Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, the late brilliant Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, was a third generation psychologist. And she said that pale skin to most white people was unattractive. It had no color to it. So they came up with tattoos, and they called it body art to give the skin and give themselves color. This is something I completely didn't understand until I read the ISIS papers. And when I look at I understand rapper 50 Cent went in, took off all his tattoos, and I look to do the same. That's going to hurt like hell, because I got a lot of arse. Hell, some of it even went so dark it's black. You can't even tell what it is. But what I'm saying, as far as our community as a people, the obsession with the ass has to be one that we must mature and grow beyond. When I talk to a lot of my female friends and things of that nature, I say, you know, hey, what do you think of yourself? I'm a bad bitch. What makes you a bad bitch? Well, I pay my bills, take care of my kids, and I'm just sexy. Okay, so you being sexy means what? To do what for what? Because a lot of times, if you were to ask a woman who wasn't as curvaceous, or a woman who may not be as easy on the eyes, they don't have an ego about themselves. So what I'm saying is, for us as a people, because I clearly don't, and maybe because I'm older now, and I look at things differently. I think if you're younger, I understand, you know, you kicking it, you out there, you want to get down, blah, 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 blah. But at what point do our community mature into higher thinking, higher levels of being proactive to solve problems in our community? Or it's every day that we wake up, it's ass. And I've been guilty of it. You know, when I go to work early in the morning, stop at Quick Trip, get gas, and I might see something thick coming out the store. And I had to really correct myself. And why am I drawn to this woman? Because sometimes she may not be that attractive. I'm looking at that ass. And so I had to discipline myself from slave plantation behavior. And it's time for us to present ourselves bigger than just genetic boasting. And I say this a lot, and people clearly don't understand that concept. But this is something that we offer to the world. A lot of times, did you know that most black women are perceived as being angry when they are trying to be intelligent? And she's not accepted in that light, especially in corporate America. But then when you put on some get it sexy, and the average black woman in the room turns around and drops and start putting their hands on their knees, that's where they're accepted. No different than black men who are silly, stupid, dumb, and pitiful. He's accepted in society. But for him to be heterosexual and a problem solver is unacceptable. And if you understand one thing about the system of white supremacy, they always uplift black people who have no intentions on solving our problems. They always uplift the entertainer. They always uplift the athlete. Whenever there's a civil unrest, CNN will call a comedian. They will call an actor to go on TV and talk about what's happening here, there. But then when any other community was dealing with civil unrest, when they was talking about Palestine or the Ukraine or Israel, they always have a scientific mind right there on TV. Or no different than when the camera news pulls up in the neighborhood because something that happened. They find the dumbest jackass to go on camera to speak about what happened, as opposed to somebody who can articulate themselves as intelligence. And so we need to become mindful of what we're projecting to the world, because the world look at us like clowns. When you look at the old school fights, the old Muhammad Ali fights, who would come in there with big fur coats and big fur hats and all the pimp gear? It was black men. looking like clowns to the rest of society. Even today at basketball games, I saw something where I think it was I can't think of the rapper's name, but he walked in there at an LA Laker game. Oh my goodness. That was my worst fear. He walked in the game at an LA Laker game looking like a complete clown. Everybody was like, he got all this jewelry. He got on all these weird clothes. Looked all crazy and funny. But at the end of the day, when he leaves out here, you still a nigga. So the one thing that we must become loud with is problem solving. And this obsession with the ass, listen, we're going to always like to see a nice body. We're going to always like to see an attractive person. I'm not telling you not to go along with nature. But it's got to come to a time where we must calibrate these desires and calibrate the priority of uplifting ourselves as more muscle than brain. And there's a serious situation about that. And I think that if men made it a priority to really just kind of ignore women who want to put themselves out there just for likes and attention, because we already got them cutting on their bodies just to get our validation. But if we could just change that algorithm, we can change that energy, if we could change that frequency. I see him have to hold this like a power. So we can just change the energy, change the frequency. Hey, man. No, I'm just joking. Let me stop that. But if we could just change the frequency of how we interact with one another and the things that we prioritize, I think that we get the result that we want out of life, you know? And, man, I can't believe this microphone really cutting the food on me right now. All right, I don't know if I can be heard. Yeah, what they call that, equipment malfunction. But I just want to see us to progress as a people. And I want us to overcome, being so sexualized with our community. We're going to always have sex. We're going to always procreate, make babies. We're always going to continue to marry one another and date each other. But we need to put things and we need to calibrate things to a realistic standard. So therefore, we can get the results out of life that we're looking for. Because every day, it can't always be about just trying to look for somebody to fuck. Every day can't be about just always on the chase trying to find somebody. And that's what black people do. Every day they leave their house and they just want to be looked at. They want to see if they can get the next catch, the next chase. Who's peeping me out or who's going to compliment me. Things of that nature. Married women leave the house and they separate from their husband, putting on all type of makeup for what? Just to be acknowledged. It's all a part of active sex. We are a sexually hyper community, but we don't want to admit it, but we are. Every rap song. Remember Tank said, listen, the algorithm of R&B music is no longer about love. It's about sex. Everything is about sex. Slave plantation behavior. So look, I thank you for sitting in always, man. Look, I recorded this episode I got up at 3:00 in the morning because I was reading Black Fatigue by Mary Cress. Man, it is an absolute must get, Black Fatigue. And this idea just came to me because I think all the time. So I'm like, man, you know what? Let me go ahead and knock this episode out. Now, later on tonight, I want you all to tap in. We're going to be having a very triggering episode with brother Andre L. Barfield, being black behind the blue. And when I tell you that this brother is coming to tell it all, to bear it all, and he has a story, and he is a real individual dealing with some of the effects of a 30-year-long career. You don't want to miss it. So if you have anybody in your family that's involved in law enforcement, or you're thinking about taking a career in law enforcement, or you're currently going through the academy in law enforcement, you most definitely want to tap in tonight's show. When I talked to brother Andre, I said, hey man, listen, just like when I had Coach Ramik on, who was with Special Forces in the military, I said, anything you don't want to talk about on camera, you don't have to, because I understand that it's our intimate, but it's the personal demise that you deal with. All the reflections of the things that you had to do when you were in the Special Forces, the craziest things that the average civilian would never know nothing about or never see. So tonight, brother Andre said he's bringing it. He's going to tell it all, and he's going to talk about the reality and dealing with all types of situations behind the badge, especially with racism, the PTSD that he deals with to this day and still has to get therapy and counseling. And he said some triggering things that I'm alarmed about. And we are very close friends, met this brother on the softball circuit, and we've had intimate conversations, and, to the point to where, I was almost in tears listening to the brother's story and what he was dealing with and the recent loss of his parents and just family members alike. I commend that brother. I admire his strength. And I'm telling you, tap in tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern. We are going live with brother Andre L. Barfield, 30-year federal agent, retired, who's now retired, being black behind the badge or the blue. So as I always say, man, this is the place where we bring it sexy back to the everyday hardworking men and women who impact our lives within close proximity. We want to rise above this madness, which is called Black culture. Share, like, and subscribe, man. Tell a problem solver to come in. As you notice, you all, I don't really promote the shows like I do anymore. I just drop them. And if you drop in the support, I thank you, because, you know, people have things to do with their time. So I'm appreciative of anybody that comes to this platform and listen to anything that I have to say, because I'm not really saying anything you haven't heard before, but I do try to give a different perspective, because I want us to be great. Because listen, man, you know, Black is beautiful. Black is bold. Black is scientific. Black is mathematics. Black is spiritual. Black is God. Black is us. Be black. Be beautiful. Be bold. Be radical. Be smart. Be intelligent. Be sexy. But not sexual. Let me stop, man. So, man, finna get ready to get ready for work. I will see you all tonight at 8 p.m. And remember, the one thing that I always tell y'all, the biggest mistake that you can make in life is to think that you have time. Peace.